And sometimes something that seems insignificant can turn out to be very significant. When a North Dakota truck stop set out on a mission to save, 10 cents or so every time a customer used a debit card at its store, it probably didn't expect to become part of potentially one of the most significant governmental changes this century. We had the Chevron decision last Friday, which curbed the power of American federal agencies, big news. But today, the Supreme Court made it even easier for American businesses to challenge federal regulations. And this isn't just big news for the penny-pinching truck stop corner post. It means an entire raft of years-old or decades-old regulations could now be successfully challenged and overturned in court. Before corner post, if a regulation had been around for more than 6 years, it was pretty much untouchable. A lower court threw out the corner post case because it said it fell outside the 6-year statute of limitations. The court basically said, you're too late, corner post, tough luck. But corner post said, we're not too late because our business wasn't even around back then. And today, the Supreme Court agreed. So from now on, the 6-year countdown will only begin from the moment the business is first affected by the regulation, not when the regulation is first introduced. And joining us now, we have Spike Cohen, founder and president of You Are the Power. Spike, how are you?
I'm doing great, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Good to see you. Now, Spike, to give us some insight into this, can you give us some other, say, hypothetical examples of how this might start playing out in the real world?
Oh, I can give many hypothetical examples. So for the past 40 years, the courts have been ruling, thanks to Chevron deference, they've been ruling that anytime someone was suing a regulatory agency saying that that harm was being done and that the regulatory agency was operating outside of its mandate by law, they just deferred to the so-called experts in that agency. So for at least the last 40 years, there are many cases that have been dismissed because they would just defer to those agencies. Now, with the end of that deference, with the Loper-Bright decision on Friday, and now saying that they can't just go back 6 years, they can go back as far as they need to, as long as the damages are within the last 6 years. We could see an undoing of this zombie administrative state for at least during my lifetime of the past 40 plus years, and possibly going back a century or more.
What are we talking here? I have a feeling that this is something that may benefit smaller businesses even more than bigger businesses.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, Chevron deference and this sort of overall deferring to the agencies has led to the regulatory capture by larger companies. If you're a major multi-billion or multi-trillion-dollar company and you realize that the regulatory agency that's regulating your industry has basically unchecked authority, well, now it's incumbent upon you to take over that agency. And so that's what we've seen. We've seen that, big pharma and big ag and big tech and big everything else take over these agencies and use them not just to make themselves richer, but to stifle their smaller competition. This inverts all of that.
And we've seen these federal agencies grow significantly, to say the least, since this Chevron deference. They're quite the powerful entity. Will they have some way to try and guard against this kind of defanging, for want of a better phrase?
Well, they'll have to show that they were operating within the law. They can no longer just say, oh, well, our experts determined that this was our interpretation. And even if that interpretation makes no sense whatsoever, the courts have to, by statute, by the deference that had come before that, they have to just defer to it. That all ends. So, yeah, they can fight back, but they have to actually show that they've been operating within the law. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing for all of us.
I remember a while back I spoke with, I believe he was a state congressman, and he was talking about this Chevron deference and the kind of effect of it. And he said that because of it, not only did it give all this power to the federal agencies, but it also meant congressmen and senators, they didn't really have so much to do anymore. Do you feel that now that they have to actually take an interest and start making rules again and regulations, will we start electing different types of people to Congress?
Will necessarily have to, and regardless of who we elect, they're going to have to actually do their job for the first time in several decades. Since basically the 1980s, maybe even before that, Congress people have been kind of political celebrities and social media influencers. The laws are written by lobbyists. They're very broad. They're not extremely well thought out. They basically just create a new regulatory authority, and then with the assumption that they're just going to be able to interpret it and create the rest of the law out of whole cloth, creating basically a fourth branch of government that had no check and balance against it. The end of Chevron deference ends that fourth branch of government, and today's decision with Corner Post says that they can go back retroactively and begin dismantling this zombie administrative state.
And finally, Spike, how long before you start seeing this actually take effect?
I think you're going to see the lawsuits immediately. We saw with the Bruin decision where they went back and said that any gun control act that doesn't comply with the Second Amendment is null and void. We're still seeing that play out in the courts. It could take years. It could, this wasn't Chevron deference wasn't built in a day, and it may not, and it certainly won't be undone in a day. But I think that we're certainly in the right direction. I think the lawsuits are going to begin pretty much immediately, but it may take many years to come to truly see the dismantling we want to see. But it will begin.
Spike Cohen, founder and president of You Are the Power. Appreciate it, Spike. Thank you.
Thank you.